On that last video I posted on Table Rock Lake of catching some fish, I had some guys asking me what my settings were and how I was able to get such a clean picture. So it's going to be a short video, but I'm going to walk through every single setting that I have so you guys can try it out on your graph and try to get this same type of image. So this Garmin graph is a GPS 1623. It's a new model that they just came out with this year, and basically it's a price point graph for you to have a 60-inch screen where you're not having to spend $6-7 grand for a graph. So I use the blue color palette, and I believe that this is the best because of you're able to separate targets and separate fish a lot easier, and you know right when your lane is marked on top. It is, so whenever it's straight, there is that hard red dense return, and that way you know it is truly in line with your trolling motor. You know, a lot of different guys use other color palettes because it works better with their eyes and how they see. But for me, blue is by far the best, and I basically use it 100% of the time. So past that, on face value, I always basically leave it at 100 foot out. I sometimes go down to 80, but normally always leave it at 100. And then the only thing that I will change is the depth, and that's depending if I'm fishing shallow, deep, whatever that situation is. So let's get into some of the details. So I keep gain around 70 to 75. Some guys keep it a little colder, hotter, but 73 is kind of a happy middle for me. And then if I were to get into maybe some dirtier water, fishing shallower, I will then bump that down to about 70, maybe 69, somewhere right around there. So sonar setup, blue, color gain 58%. That's been the happy middle ground for me. The color limit default, and the bottom fill is off. Do not turn on bottom fill. You lose a lot of information of fish being on the bottom, or if you're fishing grass, or if it's rock bottom, you're just not able to see those details. Layout. So big important thing in layout is that grid overlay. I have that off at all times. Now, if you guys are just getting into Livescope, you just got your graph, it is good to have sometimes. So I'm going to turn this on and kind of show you guys. What that does is it turns on that grid at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 foot, and you're able to visualize kind of how far that is, where that target is, whether it's a fish or a brush pile, whatever you're fishing. So to learn Livescope, it is a great tool, but once you understand casting distance, I highly recommend turning it off just so it cleans up that picture and you're able to see a little bit more. So, and all of this, I don't really mess with. So we're going to go down to noise reject, which is medium. A lot of noise reject and ghost reject is based on how your boat is wired, your battery setup, and say if your black box or your graph is connected to an accessory power and is not directly ran to your batteries, that's when you're going to have to mess with some of these details in these settings a little bit more. My boat, my Livescope, is all directly powered to a graph. I run 13.3, 13.4 volts at the start of the day, and I have 13.1, 13.2 volts at the end of the day. And that's ultimately one of the most important things when talking about Livescope settings, is making sure that your boat is set up correctly so that you could have success on the water. So through that, my noise reject is medium, my ghost reject is off, and my TVG is off. I want to get as much information out of this graph as I can every single time. So let's go into installation. And on that, we're going to go to that key tip that I have is going to be in the installation part of this settings, and it's going to be stabilization and auto stabilize. So when you guys first open this up, it's going to show as on, and it works great. It's perfect. but there's something that you can do where you guys can honestly catch a lot more fish that most people can't see. And by turning that off, you are able to adjust your pitch angle. And right now, mine is set at 41 degrees. Now, don't take this 41 degrees and automatically apply it to your boat, because it's going to be different on where your transducer is mounted, whether it's on the trolling motor or a different mount, or if it's higher up on the trolling motor or lower, and you can change that with the install depth also. But what this pitch angle does is moves the graph up and down. So, and hitting when you're casting at fish that are high up in the water column, it is really nice. And some guys have issues with trying to find their lure when they cast it, and this is your solution right here. So when you move it a little bit down, and you can kind of see this top line, and I'll mark that in the video, but what this does is when you cast, you can see the splash from your lure. So you can see right there at the top. You saw my lure hit, and you can obviously track your bait. Now the catching more fish part is there are times where fish will sit in 1, 2, 3 foot of water right below the surface in the middle of the lake. And whenever you're chasing those floaters, it is very, very important to have that setting, that pitch angle set a little bit lower so you can try to find those fish. So that's a quick rundown of some of my Livescope settings and some different tips that I do to try to catch more fish. And I'm going to list all of these in the description all together so that you guys can one by one go through your graph and check all these. And if there's any other questions that you have with Livescope settings, comment below, let me know, and I'll get back with you and tell you my opinion and kind of what I would do.